Hello and welcome to Byju's IAS. Let's take up the analysis of today's The Hindu newspaper by looking at an editorial from page number 6 of the Delhi edition. This editorial deals with the latest wave of communal violence that was witnessed in Bangladesh. These internal developments of Bangladesh directly affects Indian interests and also has an impact on the India-Bangladesh relationship, and hence the topic is very important, especially for your mains examination. See, recently during the Durga Puja season, which is a major festival for the Hindu community in the Bengal region, a wave of communal attacks took place in which radical Islamists targeted the minority Hindu community in Bangladesh, leading to the destruction of several Hindu temples and minority houses, which has resulted in several deaths and injuries amongst the religious minority. This brutal wave of communal violence has shocked the country and has been strongly condemned by regional powers like India and global powers and global organizations such as the United Nations and the United States. The trigger for these attacks is said to be a fake news that was circulating on social media circles in Bangladesh, where a doctored image has allegedly been used showing disrespect to the holy book Quran being caused by a minority community, thus triggering the radical Islamists to target the minority groups. This led to several incidents of mob violence which began in the Chittagong region and spread quickly to other minority areas. See, Bangladesh, just like any other South Asian nation, has a history of communal violence where the majoritarian community has often targeted the minorities, thus threatening the social fabric of the country. Most South Asian countries are affected by such majoritarian communalism, which has often disrupted peace and stability in the region. However, while India has expressed concern at these developments, India does have very good relations with the Sheikh Hasina government led by the Awami League party. In an official response, the Indian government has expressed concern at these developments, but at the same time, it has also praised Sheikh Hasina government's action that has been taken against the mobs. Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina and her party, the Awami League, are seen to be very close and friendly to India, and in the interest of maintaining these friendly and good relations, the Indian government has not blamed or targeted the Bangladeshi government. India has only expressed concern at these incidents and has praised the action taken by the Bangladeshi government. In fact, Sheikh Hasina's government has been quick to act against this incident, and the authorities in Bangladesh have already arrested hundreds of people and cases have been filed, thus indicating the seriousness of the Bangladeshi government in tackling the situation. But however, the communal issues that affects both India and Bangladesh is of late having an impact on the India-Bangladesh relationship as well. Because following these communal attacks in Bangladesh against minority Hindus, domestic political pressure has been growing on the Indian government, where religiously partisan voices in the country belonging to the majoritarian community here in India are pressurizing the Indian government to target Bangladesh and put pressure on the Bangladeshi government to protect the religious minorities in Bangladesh. But however, if the Indian government falls under this domestic pressure, it will threaten to derail the carefully nurtured relationship with Bangladesh. Because Bangladesh will see that as an act of interference from India. And in fact, these signs are already visible. In the last few years, the internal communal issues of India and Bangladesh are already affecting the bilateral relationship. And as a result, after Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina promised strict action against the recent incidents of communal violence, and after she met the religious minority community, she even made an indirect reference to India, where similar mob violence incidents take place against religious minorities, usually carried out by the majoritarian groups. And she has apparently stated that nothing is done in the big country, which is a reference to India, even though it affects the interests of Bangladesh. Whereas Bangladesh, on the other hand, has been seen to be taking strict action and strongly resists any Indian interference. It is in this regard that India will have to play a balanced role and ensure that it doesn't give in to domestic political pressure arising from religiously partisan voices in India, and without appearing to be interfering in Bangladesh's internal affairs, India will have to work closely with the Bangladeshi government, which is a friendly government, to deal with rising radicalism and fundamentalism in the South Asia region. In this regard, the Indian High Commission in Dhaka has reached out to the victims, thus highlighting that India is deeply concerned about the developments taking place in Bangladesh without appearing to be interfering in Bangladesh's internal affairs. See, as a regional leader, India has every right to be concerned about these developments and express concern for the religious minorities in Bangladesh. India is right to condemn the acts of violence and call upon the Bangladeshi government to act strictly against the perpetrators. But however, India cannot be seen to be falling under domestic political and religious pressure, and it cannot be seen as religiously partisan on this issue. Because if India were to do this, it would derail the India-Bangladesh relationship, because Bangladesh also has similar concerns on India's internal affairs and internal policies. For example, Bangladesh has already strongly objected to India's internal policies, such as the National Register of Citizens and the Citizenship Amendment Act. Because the NRC exercise in Assam essentially blames Bangladesh for illegal migration into India, and the controversial Citizenship Amendment Act blames Bangladesh as a country where the religious minorities are persecuted. And also, just like the attacks on minority Hindus in Bangladesh affects Indian interests, similarly, even Bangladesh has been concerned about growing incidents of mob violence against religious minorities in India. These incidents have already led to massive protests and even violence in Bangladesh as a mark of protest against India. And in fact, recently when Prime Minister Modi visited the country, there was massive protest and violence against the Prime Minister's visit, thus indicating the impact of domestic communal issues on the bilateral relationship. So keeping this in mind, both the countries should ensure that, at any cost, communal politics within each country and domestic pressure from religiously partisan groups doesn't affect the carefully nurtured India-Bangladesh relationship. India's ties with Bangladesh is extremely crucial, especially with the Awami League government, as it has been carefully nurtured over the decades since Bangladesh became independent in 1971. In 1971, India not only directly supported the liberation of Bangladesh war, but also emerged as a very close friend of the Awami League party headed by Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, who is seen as the founding father of Bangladesh. India completely backed Sheikh Mujibur Rahman and the liberation movement, and following Bangladesh's independence, India and the Awami League government established very close relations until 1975. But after this, the India-Bangladesh relationship suffered a major setback as Sheikh Mujibur Rahman was assassinated and the country fell under military rule, which was largely seen as pro-Pakistan. From 1975 till early 1990s, the Bangladeshi military would establish dictatorship in the country and create numerous security problems for India. Then a party known as the Bangladesh Nationalist Party came to power in the 1990s, which was again seen as a pro-Pakistan party, and it continued the hostile relationship of Bangladesh with India. During these years, under the military rule and under the BNP government, the Bangladeshi government was known to sponsor Northeast insurgent outfits as they found a safe haven in the country, and India was dealing with several challenges to its border management. During the military rule and during the BNP government, India couldn't gain access to the Northeast through connectivity projects via Bangladesh, and several radical parties, including fundamentalist organizations and terror groups which were aligned with Pakistan, were thriving in Bangladesh. But India got a breakthrough in the 1990s when Awami League came back to power for one term under Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, the daughter of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. This led to some progress in the India-Bangladesh relationship from 96 onwards, but again the country fell back under the rule of the BNP. It was only after 2009 that Sheikh Hasina's Awami League came back to power with a strong majority, and since then, the Sheikh Hasina government has won multiple elections, and Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has single-handedly transformed the India-Bangladesh relationship. Because immediately after coming to power in 2009, Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina made it a top priority to address India's security concerns in the region. The Sheikh Hasina government was instrumental in helping India tackle Northeast insurgency, as all the safe havens were destroyed and several top insurgent leaders were arrested and even extradited to India. India-Bangladesh were also able to address several border management challenges, including drug trafficking, arms smuggling, etc. And even the extent of illegal migration from Bangladesh to India has gone down significantly over the last 10 years. Then the Sheikh Hasina government has even given India transit access, which will enable India-Bangladesh to execute joint connectivity projects so that mainland India can connect with northeast of India via Bangladesh. Plus, India-Bangladesh are also working very closely in countering radicalism and terrorism. And these strong strategic relations, accompanied with strong economic relations, has turned Bangladesh into a critical neighbor for India in the South Asia region. So at any cost, both the governments cannot afford to derail their bilateral relations because of communal and political compulsions arising out of their domestic matters. So both the sides need to be seen to be respecting each other's interests, that is the concern with regard to their respective religious minorities. And at the same time, they shouldn't be seen to be interfering in the internal affairs of the other country. Next, we have 3 articles related to the new quadrilateral forum that has been launched between India, Israel, United Arab Emirates, and the United States. We discussed this development in our yesterday's analysis, and I had pointed out that this is going to be a major development in India's foreign policy and in global geopolitics. Similar to the Quad grouping that is focused on the Indo-Pacific region, which includes countries such as India, Japan, Australia, and US, a new quadrilateral forum is taking shape in the West Asia region, which will include like-minded countries and strategic partners such as India, US, Israel, and the UAE. As we discussed yesterday, the formation of this quadrilateral is a follow-up to last year's signing of Abraham Accords, which was mediated by the United States, which led United Arab Emirates to recognize Israel for the first time and establish full-fledged diplomatic relations with Israel. This major initiative has been announced during the visit of India's foreign minister to Israel, and the deputy chief of mission at the Israeli embassy in Delhi has confirmed that this new Quad grouping will mainly be an economic forum that will bring together the economic strengths of these 4 countries. See, India already has strategic relations with the United States and the United Arab Emirates. Then India and Israel also have excellent relations in the defense field and as well as in the fields of technology and innovation. These 4 countries have strong potential to form a formidable economic forum because the United States and Israel can bring in technology and innovation, whereas the United Arab Emirates can bring in massive investments to leverage the manufacturing potential of India. In fact, the industries of these countries were already pushing for such an initiative as they are keen on leveraging the strengths of each country. One such initiative, for example, involves UAE's investments in an Israeli company that is developing robotic solar panel cleaning technology, which is going to be manufactured in India. The foreign ministers of these countries, including the deputy chief of mission of the Israeli embassy, have confirmed that this new Quad forum will not be a strategic forum. It will not primarily focus on strategic and security issues, but instead, it will primarily be an economic forum, and it will focus on other related issues as well, such as trade, combating climate change, energy cooperation, with a focus on maritime security as well, because maritime security in the West Asia region is directly linked to economic stability and energy security. This initiative took shape as a trilateral initiative between US, Israel, and the UAE just last week, when the respective foreign ministers met and they decided to set up a trilateral cooperation to work on religious coexistence and water and energy. Later, India also expressed interest due to its close relations with the other 3 countries. And by taking India on board, this trilateral cooperation has been transformed into a new quadrilateral forum that will specifically focus on the economic interests of these countries in the West Asia region. To highlight the fact that this new Quad forum will primarily be an economic forum, The foreign ministers of these four countries have ensured that they don't make any unnecessary references to China or even to the Palestinian issue, because this Quad forum is not intended to be a strategic forum. On page number 6, The Hindu carries a related editorial which evaluates the significance of the formation of this Quad grouping. The editorial is of the opinion that the formation of this new Quad forum represents a major transformation that is taking place in West Asian geopolitics. See, on one hand, the establishment of diplomatic relations between US and Israel has opened up enormous economic opportunities in the region, which these two countries are looking to leverage by working closely with the US, which has enormous stakes in the region. For India as well, the West Asia region is critical, especially for energy security and for ensuring the well-being of its diaspora. And given the fact that India and UAE have strategic relations, along with close economic and defense relations with US and Israel, it provides a great opportunity for India to collaborate with these countries to further promote and preserve its interests in West Asia. The United Arab Emirates has emerged as a crucial partner for India in West Asia, not just because it guarantees India's energy security and is crucial for the well-being of Indian diaspora, but also because it has been reported that the UAE has been working the back channel routes to promote normalization of ties between India and Pakistan. Throughout this year, we have seen some progress being achieved in the India-Pakistan relationship, and it has been widely reported that this normalization has been facilitated and mediated by the UAE through back-channel diplomacy. All these factors give enormous significance to the new Quad grouping that has been formed, but it is also going to pose a few new challenges to India's West Asia policy. See, India's West Asia policy is focused on three main pillars. One is on maintaining close relations with the Sunni Gulf monarchies led by Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates, as these Sunni Gulf countries are crucial for India's energy security and for ensuring the well-being of the Indian diaspora and for bringing investments into the country. The second pillar is India's relations with Israel while maintaining an ideological stand on the Palestinian issue. Due to the Israel-Palestine issue, for several decades, India's West Asia policy had been compromised because when the Sunni Gulf countries were hostile to Israel and when they were not establishing diplomatic ties with Israel, they were expecting India to scale down its relations with Israel. For several decades, India could not establish full-fledged ties with Israel because of its dependency on the Sunni countries for its energy security. But now, due to the transformation taking place in the relations between Israel and Saudi Arabia and UAE, India gets to establish good relations with both the sides while retaining its ideological support to the independence of Palestine. And the third pillar in India's West Asia policy is the Shia power bloc led by Iran. See, in West Asia region, the geopolitics is very complicated due to religious sectarianism. The sectarian conflict between the Shias and the Sunnis has led to the destabilization of West Asia, where the Sunni powers led by Saudi Arabia and UAE are locked in an intense geopolitical rivalry with the Shia power bloc led by Iran and other countries. For India, Iran is also a key partner because until recently, Iran was a major energy provider to India before India fell under the pressure of American sanctions and cut off oil imports from Iran. But apart from that, Iran is also a key strategic partner for India, especially with regard to connectivity projects and strategic projects such as the Chabahar Port project and the INSTC project, which will help India connect with the landlocked regions of Afghanistan and Central Asia. So now the challenge for India is that as it grows closer to US, as it gets closer to Israel, and as it maintains strong relations with Saudi Arabia and UAE, it needs to ensure that its ties with Shia Iran is not compromised due to the geopolitical rivalries between these powers. Because currently in West Asian geopolitics, an axis has been formed involving US, Israel and Saudi Arabia, where these three countries are jointly targeting their common rival, that is Iran. India's increasing alignment with the US, Israel and Saudi Arabia has already led Iran to believe that India is moving away and aligning with its geopolitical rivals such as US, Israel, and Saudi Arabia. So, if India has to protect its widespread interests in West Asia, it has to strike a balance between these geopolitical rivals and ensure that the newly formed quadrilateral grouping doesn't become a platform to target Iran, which also happens to be a crucial strategic partner for India. Next, we have a column on page number 6, which refers to the socio-economic caste census, which we had discussed in detail in our yesterday's class. Yesterday, we spoke about the hesitance of the central government to release the data collected in the socio-economic caste census of 2011. The central government has refused to publish the data and has informed the Parliament and the Supreme Court that it is not ready to publish the data into the public domain, considering that the data is flawed and filled with errors. But the writer counters this argument of the centre and says that the logistical and legal justifications being offered by the government does not stand close scrutiny, and hence he is pushing the government to either publish the data which has significance for the policy of reservation, or either to take up a new socio-economic caste census in order to capture empirical data on the socio-economic status of the different castes of India. Such empirical data would be crucial in designing the policy of reservation, and hence, without any excuses from the government, the caste census data will have to be brought out into the public domain. Since we have discussed this topic in detail yesterday, I would request you to watch the video and then go through this column once. Next, on page number 8, we have an article that refers to the National Security Strategies Conference, which was chaired by the Union Home Minister to discuss the key national security challenges facing the country with senior security officials of the country, including the DGPs of all the states and the Director Generals of all key security forces. See, the National Security Strategies Conference is an annual conference organized by the Intelligence Bureau, which is chaired by the Union Home Minister, and it gives the centre an opportunity to work with the state police forces and all the central security organizations to brainstorm and evaluate the key security challenges that are facing the nation. During this conference, the primary focus was on cyber attacks, especially the latest alleged attacks against India's critical information infrastructure, which have originated from China. Recently, it has been reported that cyber groups backed by Chinese state have targeted the power sector and the ports of India in what appears to be a sophisticated cyber attack by state-sponsored entities. While the Indian government has officially denied that these attacks took place, it is widely believed that India's critical information infrastructure was brought under sustained Chinese cyber attacks as the border tensions between India and China were escalating. So such incidents of sophisticated cyber attacks emanating from China and even from Pakistan have been taken note of during the conference, and the top officials along with the Union Home Minister have even held discussions on the security challenges related to illegal migration, counter-terrorism, etc. Next, according to this article on page number 8, India's outgoing ambassador to Russia has stated that both the countries face common threats from Afghanistan. In this address, he has confirmed India's participation at the Moscow format meeting, which has been organized by Russia to engage in direct talks with senior leaders of the Taliban by involving important regional powers such as India, Pakistan, Iran, China, and other concerned Central Asian countries. Russia is hosting this summit to engage with the Taliban and the regional powers to contain the situation in Afghanistan, and India has officially confirmed its participation, and this would be the first time that India would be engaging in such a multilateral format while officially engaging with the Taliban. Then parallelly, India has also convened a similar conference on Afghanistan, which would involve the national security advisors of all the concerned countries. Reportedly, India's NSA has invited the national security advisors of Russia, China, Pakistan, Iran, and as well as Central Asian countries that border Afghanistan, such as Tajikistan and Turkmenistan, to take part in this NSA summit in order to take stock of the developing security situation in Afghanistan. Apart from highlighting these joint security issues of India and Russia with regard to the situation in Afghanistan, India's outgoing ambassador has reiterated the strong relations between India and Russia, especially in the defense domain. He has stated that the 2+2 ministerial dialogue involving the defense ministers and foreign ministers of the two countries will go forward, and even the procurement of the S-400 missile system from Russia is on track, despite the threat of American sanctions under the CATSA law of the US. The Countering American Adversaries Through Sanctions Act of the US has threatened to bring sanctions on India if India goes ahead with procuring S-400 missiles from Russia. But according to the Indian ambassador, the S-400 deal is on track, and India and Russia are unlikely to be deterred by the threat of American sanctions. Next, according to this article on page number 9, the Prime Minister has ordered all government departments to cut down on red tapeism in bureaucracy, which leads to slow decision making, by reviewing all the existing processes and by scrapping unnecessary paperwork and compliances. The government departments have also been instructed to ensure that there is a clean working environment by discarding temporary old files. And this entire review and cleanup exercise will be directly monitored by the Cabinet Secretariat under the Cabinet Secretary through the Department of Administrative Reforms and Public Grievances. This department, which functions under the Ministry of Personnel, Public Grievances and Pensions, directly reports to the Prime Minister. And as per the orders of the PM, the Cabinet Secretary will be monitoring the review of outdated and old processes which are still practiced in certain government departments. And through the cleanup exercise, the Department of Administrative Reforms and Public Grievances will be pushing for a clean work environment by disposing all unnecessary paperwork and files in order to encourage smoother and faster decision making by ending red tapeism in bureaucracy. Now let's look at the mains practice questions. The first question: recent communal incidents in Bangladesh targeted against religious minorities has emerged as a major cause for concern for India. While India voices concern on these attacks, it should not appear religiously partisan. Examine. The second question: India must retain strong ties with Iran as it seeks partnership with the US-Israel-UAE bloc. Critically evaluate. Kindly write an answer to these questions and post your answers in the answer writing portal, for which the link shall be given in the description box below. So this concludes our discussion for today. Thanks for watching.